Welcome to another episode of Think Chatbot. This is episode number 4, if I'm not mistaken, Jacob.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yep.
Great. And for a fourth time in a row, I have Jacob with me. Say hi to everyone, Jacob.
Hi there, Alex. How are you today?
I'm very good. I'm very good. I'm very cold. It's gotten really, really cold in the UK recently. And there seems to be some sort of draft coming through my window in my office, obviously still working from home. And yeah, my hands are a bit freezing, but this should not stop me from building amazing chatbots. So we should be all right to go. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I'm impressed with our ability to dress in basically the same jumper despite working from home. It's a new ubisend uniform. It almost looks like a big woolly
jumper. I do feel that that's a bit awkward at the moment, but in a minute we'll turn off our cameras and it'll be all okay again. So Think Chatbot is a series, if you don't know, where we try to build a chatbot in about 45 minutes, sometimes a bit shorter than that, depending on the use case. But so essentially every week we come up with a use case and we try to build something together along with Jacob and myself or another guest in the future. So what do we have in store today, Jacob? What are we building?
So today is actually a suggestion from a viewer from one of our previous videos, and it's working from home essentially, but it's just a prior step before everyone starts working from home. It's ensuring employees have everything they need to start working from home in a nice, smooth process.
Okay, I guess that includes everyone having the same jumper as well.
Yes, it does indeed,
as part of the conversation. Okay, cool. All right, well, let's turn off the cameras, make this all a lot less awkward, and let's start building a chatbot. Perfect. So do you want to run me through what it is you'd like to have me build?
Yeah, of course. So basically, when a company starts to work from home, obviously they have a lot of different processes. And the client that we were speaking to, who put in the suggestion in a couple episodes ago, I can't quite remember the exact date, said that they need to clarify the employee has all the necessary equipment. So this covers a desk that's the right size for them, a comfortable chair that's going to properly support their back and all their posture, and obviously there's the necessary tech. So whether this is a laptop or a kind of full-blown PC and stand. And then once that's been confirmed, if the employee does have those things, they kind of go straight through where they share a home working policy and a video. And if it isn't confirmed, then what they like to do is they kind of like to get an email pinged off over to IT. Obviously, it's a kind of process which takes up quite a bit of time from the HR agents, especially if you imagine it's a large company and they have to go through this with everybody. So it's quite a time-consuming process for them, and it's something that they kind of really just need automated.
Okay, yeah, that makes complete sense. It seems like it's obviously a great use case for the times as well. One thing that, because we were discussing this prior a few minutes before starting here, and one of the things that came up was we would want this process to ideally be user-driven. So the employee would bring up this request of can I work from home type thing, rather than obviously right now in the amazing year 2020, people are sort of forced to work from home. So there's a bit of a different approach there that you would have to take, where the company would have to potentially message everyone, which for those of you who attended our Think Chatbot last week would have been really, really valuable for that. So it was all about broadcasting messages and sending notifications and basically updating the company about the new process, which I think went live on YouTube over the weekend or on Friday.
Yeah, I believe it was either Thursday or Friday that episode went live there.
Okay, perfect. So you can always catch up on that. But my point here being is, in an ideal world, this process, I think, from the client's perspective, would be we want to give the option to our employees to work from home, but we do obviously, like you said, need to give them all of the requirements. But it would be a user-led request. Is that fair to say, rather than a push from the company?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's when the user or maybe the line manager says, okay, it's time to work from home, or they want to start working, they need to get in touch and spring off the process themselves. Okay,
perfect. Great. Cool. So what we're going to do is, as we do every week, I spun up a brand new ubisend account. So on this account, there's absolutely nothing except for one thing, which Jacob created beforehand, which is an FAQ. So on the ubisend platform, what you'll usually find is there are 3 big features that you would usually work on. The first one being the conversation builder. Makes sense. That's where you would build your chatbot's conversations, and we'll obviously spend a lot of time in that section of the platform today. Then we have the FAQs, which would be, I quite like to compare them to your chatbot's knowledge base. So that's where you would actually write content, questions and answers that your employees, or if you take this to elsewhere than HR, your customers or etc. That's where you would write all of that copy. And then the third one would be integrations, which we're not going to go through too much today, except with the email part of it, which is a very, very small part of the integration section. So right now, what we've done, or what Jacob has done before starting this, is he's created basically one FAQ. So if I go into NLP, I go into FAQs, as you can see, there is one FAQ here that's been created. So Jacob did a good job at giving the FAQ a name. So I just clicked on questions here just to bring this up, just so that everyone can see what's going on here. He's given the FAQ a name, work from home request, perfect. He's giving the FAQ a category, work from home, which is going to be very, very helpful for admin purposes later on, once you have 200 or 300 of those. And then he gave this FAQ 3 ways of asking the same question. Can I work from home? How do I work from home? What are the requirements to work from home? As you can see here, I could add more. If I thought that Jacob didn't do an amazing job, I could add more of those. What happens as well is, as people talk to the bot, your employees will keep talking to the bot and bring up new ways of asking the same question. And in another section of the platform that I'm not going to show today, you can actually train the bot. So you can see it here on the left. And every time the bot doesn't understand something, it's basically going to put it in that training section. And you can use this section to keep training your bot to know more and more variants of the same question. And so basically they will all appear here on the screen. So Jacob created the questions, and he's also created the answer. So let's have a look at this. So he's created a message that is an action message. If I click here on the little drop down, you can see that there's a whole bunch of different message templates that we can use. So you could use a standard message, which is essentially exactly what it sounds. It's just a message. You could use a quick reply, which has these little buttons, which are really fancy and nice. We'll use those later on. Can use an action message, which is what he used previously, which has these bigger buttons. And then we can do all sorts of things like carousels, which have images. We can have just a video, for instance, which we'll use as well in the future. We can do a progress message, which is just going to be these 3 dots showing that the chatbot is thinking. And we can have payments as well, which would be a payment gateway here, which obviously we're not going to use in this instance. So I think if I don't save this, hopefully it's going to stay there. Yep. Okay. So Jacob wrote, working from home is a perfectly viable option at our great company, perfect name for a company. To make sure you're suitable for remote working, I need to take you through a short process. Ready, question mark. And then there's a button that says yes, and a little post back, which is basically something that's been sent in the back end of the chatbot platform to trigger a conversation, which we'll look at in a minute, which is WFH. So I think you've done a good job there. You happy with this?
Yeah, I am indeed. Yeah, I think it kind of introduces the fact different ways people can work from home, and then says, all right, let's kick off the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we want to make sure that this process is employee driven. So we don't really want to force this process upon the employees. It's more like an employee is randomly this day thinking, oh, it would be actually quite cool to work from home a couple of times a week. I'm going to ask my chatbot, because that's where I go every day to ask all of my HR questions. I'm going to ask my question, can I work from home? Yeah. So this is what we're doing. Perfect. So let's have a quick test of this before we start. So if I go into the demo and I type, can I work from home? Perfect. So my message is perfectly working. This FAQ would trigger. Amazing. So we can use that. Okay, so like I said earlier, we're going to spend quite a bit of time, obviously, working in the conversation builder. Here, what we want to do is create the entire conversation around this process. So typically, a conversation within the ubisend platform, we like to compare them to processes. So one conversation is, quote unquote, equals to one process. Here it is the verification of, are you actually okay to work from home? Do you have everything that you need? So here we're going to start a new conversation. Worth knowing that there are conversations that are built by default. So all of these, we didn't build them, we didn't write them. Those come by default within the platform. Very helpful for you if you're just starting. You don't need to basically start from scratch. But in this instance, we're going to create something completely new. So let's give this conversation a name, shall we? What could we call it?
I think probably
work from home requirements,
or employee work from home request.
Yeah.
Requirement.
Yep. So this conversation helps the employees understand whether or not they have the right equipment to work from home.
So these are the name and description here. This is all internal use, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, sorry, having a dash of water here. So obviously the description and name are internal. This is something that you'll use yourselves or your team will use. It's worth making them quite descriptive because you'll quickly have 30 or 40 or 50 of conversations in the back end of your chatbot, and so you want to make sure that not only just you but also your team can go and find the right one to edit and things like that. So it's quite valuable to have something well described. What I like to do is for the description, I like to just always start it the same way. This conversation helps X do Y, and that just makes everything a lot easier. Okay, so what characterizes conversations in the ubisend platform is triggers. So that's what literally triggers the conversation. So that could be an event, it could be a word, could be a sentence, could be a click, could be an API, could be a language, could be a page URL, could be anything. So there's all sorts of things here. If I click this drop-down menu, you can see that there's a whole bunch of stuff that can trigger a conversation. In this instance, particularly, if you recall, we created an FAQ with a button that had a little keyword in the back end of the button. Behind that yes word, there was a keyword that was capital letters WFH. And so what we want to do here is use that as the trigger for this conversation. So I could use a whole bunch of stuff. I could use, actually, we could do that later on. I can show you that in a minute. I could use any of these things here. And actually, all of these events are incredibly valuable if you want to create very bespoke, very intricate conversations, because you have so much freedom to build anything that you'd like. But for this instance in particular, I'm going to say, I want to trigger this conversation when a message is sent that is equal, oops, I can't type, equal to WFH. Yeah. What I was going to say here is the conversation builder we give you is actually quite, it encourages creativity and complexity to facilitate efficiency. So here in this instance, we have if the message is equal to WFH, sorry, which is perfect because that's what I've set up. But we could do as well, or the user is on a page that matches regex. Oh no, not regex, because that's going to be very complex. That matches, let's say, great company. I don't remember the name that you gave this company. .co.uk/work from home. So in this instance, let's say that the employee is actually navigating on the website or your internal website and lands on a page that is about working from home. You could trigger the same chatbot conversation. So again, you can really compile these conditionals to make something that is both complex and very, very efficient. We're not going to do this here because I don't actually own the domain name for this, so it doesn't really make sense. But it's just to show you that you can actually do all of this as well. Okay, let's save this. Perfect. So we've done a few of these now, Jacob. So what do you recall we do first when we create a conversation?
Yeah, of course. So I think the first thing that we do is we get the vague structure of the conversation in place. So not going in and filling in all the details, but just kind of getting message 1 is going to be X, message 2 is going to be Y, and just so that way we can kind of work from there and fill it out. Very
good. You learned well. Perfect. So exactly like Jacob just said. So that is the way I like to build conversations. I completely appreciate that you might have a different style, but it is the way that I feel makes more sense. So like Jacob just mentioned, what we want to do is create the skeleton of the conversation first before going into the weeds and doing all sorts of copy changes, fancy transitions, any integrations, any emails, etc., etc. Okay, so you're going to have to drive me through this one first, Jacob. So here we have a message. The first message, what is it going to be about?
Yep. So the first message is going to be about how, for the employees to work from home, they have to kind of make sure they have the necessary necessary equipment, and the chatbot's just going to kind of check this out and just run them through the process. So a bit of an introduction, really.
Okay. So let's call this introduction, and then we're going to put. There's probably going to be a few messages here, so it's going to be. Well, we'll figure it out in a minute. So let's do that first. So the first one is introduction. Then we want to have another conversation, another message that is, what would you want the first message to be about?
I think this should just be like, again, it might be worth even like triply clarifying that the employee does want to work from home now they've had this kind of initial information. So it's like, so the first message is saying you want to, here's what you need to work from home. Are you sure you still would like to, or something along those lines?
Okay, so I see a glaring error here, but I'll follow your lead for now, and then we'll see why this might be a mistake. So are you sure?
It's always good to know as well, like to see every now and again the odd little mess up from time to time, as you're a bit more accustomed to the platform building conversations than I am.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I build those all day, every day, so that's completely fine. Okay, so this will be the confirmation message, and then the next one they would say yes. This one we need to say something about the requirements. So what are the requirements?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so here's where we say this is what you need, and they're going to need a desk that's the correct height, a comfortable chair that properly supports their back, and again any necessary equipment. So this will be laptop.
Yes. Chair, IT requirements. Okay, perfect. Okay, and here I suppose we would ask them as well whether or not they have it.
Yeah, exactly. So once we've told them what they need, we then double check if they have. Okay,
so if they don't, we'll do something, as in if they don't have this this requirement. If they do, we'll do something else.
So what you're doing here is you're kind of making two separate branches in the conversation?
Precisely that, yes.
Yep.
So in here, I'm basically branching out the conversation. I messed up because I completely went on the wrong message bubble. So I'm just going to delete this. I completely went on the wrong thing. I wanted to put it here. If they do something else. Okay. And then after that, we'll figure it out in a minute. So, okay, so this is good. We have a skeleton of the conversation we want to have. One thing that sort of sprung to my mind when we went from this message, which is the introduction message, to confirm that you want to work from home, is that actually you're using two steps to do one thing. And that's completely fine. It's again up to you as the creator of your chatbot. You have all the freedom to do so. The only issue that you'll find here is that you're basically adding work onto the user. The employee using this chatbot would have to say, let's say that this message was, welcome to the work from home requirement conversation. And then this message is like, are you sure you want to work from home? Yes or no? The transition between this message to the next message doesn't really make sense. There isn't really a natural conversation. There isn't really a natural step that the user will have to take to go from this message to the next. And so what we can do instead is completely remove this step here. I'm going to delete that, which is going to produce a whole bunch of issues. But I can, yeah, there you go. So I have a few unlinked steps now.
Sorry about this here, Alex. I seem to have thrown the odd spanner in the works here.
No, it's normal. It's just because I wanted to show the error, and now I'm sort of a bit stuck on that error being quite annoying. So that's completely fine. It is what I wanted to do. So I'm just going to delete everything, and we're going to start in a fresh way that is a lot more streamlined. So basically what we want to do is we want to remove all of these steps that don't make any sense. All right, so introduction. So we're going to start from scratch again. So a message is sent to the bot, continue something. Okay, so this is the transition. So the transition is, as we've discussed before, the trigger is work from home. Okay, this trigger is going to start the conversation here with the introduction message. What the error was earlier was we had two nodes of the same message, or two message nodes, one after the other, that didn't really make any sense. There wasn't any valuable transition from one to the next. So what I might do is just delete this. Okay. And so now what we can do actually is use a trigger, use a feature of the ubisend platform that's actually quite helpful for that sort of stuff, is that here we have the introduction message. So the introduction message would be, I can help you with your work from home request. Perfect. And then I can add another message within the same bubble, which will actually remove this issue of having multiple bubbles requiring multiple transitions from one to the next. So instead, I can just add multiple bubbles into one message. Before I start, are you sure you want to, what was it, the requirement? Are you sure you want to work from home? Something like that?
Oh yeah, that's absolutely perfect.
Okay, and then yes, oops, yes, no. Okay, and so now we want to say yes. Here are the work from home requirements. Oops, I'm going to remove that. Work from home requirements. So here we'd have the transition, which would be equal to yes. And then we can start. Great. Here are the requirements. I'll type when people are watching me.
It's always one of the more stressful things, that is typing on the live.
So here are the requirements to working from home. Another message. You must have the following items. A standard size desk. Is there a standard size? I'm not sure. A comfortable and supporting desk chair. And finally, all your IT equipment. Okay, and then we can add, can you confirm that you have all these items? And then we're going to do something similar. Oh, I'm not going to turn it into an action. We're just going to do yes and no. Okay, so we have one trigger that triggers the first message, which is in two parts. The second part gives the user a yes and no answer. And then when the user says yes, we have one answer. And now obviously we need to put the answer for no. So in here, stop. Okay, if the message is equal to no, we're gonna do, okay, is here to help if you need. Okay, perfect. So let's try and test this now. So we have obviously the trigger, which is WFH. We're gonna just jump straight to that so we don't mess around with the FAQ for now. We just want to test the conversation.
Yeah, cool. So when you say we're just jumping straight into the conversation there, sorry to interrupt as well. So this means we're, just for the sake of the demo purpose, we're not saying, can I work from home and going through that FAQ. We're just going straight into the conversation with that trigger.
Yeah, that's right. So the trigger that you've set up in the FAQ is actually a shorthand way of getting straight into that conversation. And so in this instance, I'm not going through the usual use case just because it's going to save us some time. But the usual use case would be someone actually asking the question in a very natural language manner, and the bot naturally, driving the user to this conversation here that we're having. So I can help you with your work from home request. Before I start, make sure that are you sure you want to work from home? Yes. Great, here are the requirements. So you must have the following items: standard size desk, blah, 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 blah. Are you sure you have all of these items? And so obviously we didn't put anything behind these buttons for now, so we're not going to do that. But what we can do is reset the widget and just start again, just to make sure that the other side of the conversation actually works as well. So no, I don't want to start to work from home. This was a mistake on my part. Okay, no worries. I'm happy to help if you need me. Okay, perfect. So we're getting somewhere. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these buttons here to I do and I don't, just because I feel like they make
feels a little bit more conversational and natural, doesn't it?
Exactly. So we're going to do that. Perfect. So now what do we want to do?
Well, from now, obviously, if the user doesn't have, so they click I don't have any of this necessary equipment, we need to inform, sorry, my voice went a little bit there, but if the user doesn't have the necessary equipment, we need to inform the IT department of what they don't have. So we need to gather that information from the user. If they do have it, we just need, that's good news. They, as you've written there, good to go. And we need to send them off down and just kind of give them a little bit of a briefing and just share some company documents.
Okay, so do you have, I think you wanted to do a video, didn't you? Do you have a video on hand?
Yeah, I do indeed. I'll just quickly
just share it into the chat in Zoom.
Yeah, of course. As I nearly forgot how to use Zoom for a second then, but thankfully the good old working from home has made me a bit of a Zoom expert.
Okay. So what I'm basically doing now is editing the transitions to make sure that they're correct. So as you can see, the transition was set up from the wrong side of the conversation here. So we don't want anything else coming out of this side of the conversation, because this is just the end. There's no other message that needs to come out of here, but there are messages that need to come out of this side of the conversation. And so what I've basically done is I've went into transitions, and I've created a transition from work from home requirement to do good to go. And I'm going to create now another one to don't email. Who are we going to email? HR, I suppose. From message equal.
I think actually, sorry, it would probably be don't email IT there as well, because the joy of this conversation is it kind of saves HR from having to get too heavily involved.
Okay, so let's create that. Okay, perfect. So let's go through this conversation again before we go any further. So we have a conversation trigger that is WFH. Again, we're going to trigger this through an FAQ. So the actual trigger doesn't really matter except for internal purposes for us to know that this actually exists in the backend. The chatbot then gives a short introduction, confirms that the user wants to stay in this conversation. This is actually quite good conversational UX tip, is you want to every now and then confirm that the user is actually on the right path. A lot of chatbots make the mistake of taking a user down a path that they don't necessarily actually want to go down into, but not providing any way out. And in this instance, we actually confirm this really early on, which is great because it's going to save everyone a lot of time. If you imagine that this step could be, I don't know, something really long. Imagine that your work from home requirements are actually 17 steps long and you need to fill out all sorts of forms and all that sort of stuff. You don't want a user to actually be stuck in this 17-step conversation before actually confirming with them that this is what they want to do. And so doing this at the very start actually makes quite a lot of sense. And then if the user says they don't want to stay here, we take them out of this conversation. Perfect. There are no arrows coming out of this step here, this node, which is perfect. We don't want them to go any further. If they say yes, so we are actually confirmed that they want to move forward, we can send them now the information that they need. So all sorts of requirements. Can you confirm that you have all of these items? Very, very important for HR to actually log the fact that this was asked and that the user actually does have all of these items. As you can appreciate, you need to log that somewhere. And so if the user says, I do, we can actually send them to a short video, I think, around introducing how to work from home and all the different rules that this implies. This could obviously very well be an internal video that's hosted somewhere, or a link to a document that could be an employee handbook or an employee document that covers all of the things around working from home. If they don't have what they need, we are going to have to ask them about what it is that they don't have. So in this instance, what we're going to do is say, okay, that's a shame, but not the end of the world. Can you tell me what it is you don't have? I'll inform IT and get you set up ASAP. Yeah?
Yep, perfect. So in this step, just to clarify for my middle brain here, so what we're doing is the user is going to be able to have an opportunity to kind of write a long form answer about what they don't currently have themselves.
Exactly. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we give the user as much freedom to write what it is that they have, don't have, need, etc. So this is a completely free-form conversation. And what we're going to do is basically log whatever the employee responds to this message as a variable to then send across to IT to say, okay, this person doesn't have XYZ based on what it is that they've said. So if I close this conversation here, we have this conversation is starting to actually take quite good form. So I'm just going to grab your video just so we have what it is we need on the other side of the conversation. We can let that go. So here, if I go into the do good to go, what we wanted to do was send an actual video to the user. And in here, obviously in the ubisend platform, we have a video format message type. And so here, what is it you gave me? So it's a YouTube video. So I can send a YouTube. I can add a short message. Make sure you watch this video before your first work from home day. Okay, so I can save this, and now this message is all done. This branch is done. We don't need to do anything more here. The only thing we need to do more of is obviously capture the information about the user who doesn't have what they need to work from home. So what is it that we're going to need to ask? Okay, so in this instance, we're going to ask it, hey, can you tell me what it is you don't have? And the user is going to answer that, and then we're going to take them to a thank you message. Okay. Informed IT. Good to go. It's going to come from don't email IT. So these are the two branches above this new message, as you remember. So we have do good to go, which is the one with the video. Again, we don't want this message to come from that branch because this one is over. What we want the message to come from is the other branch, which is don't email IT. So as soon as the user sends a message, which is the conditional here, if a message is sent, we're going to transition to this new message. Great, I've sent your message to IT. Please expect an answer from them with next steps within, let's say, 3 days. Perfect. So I'm going to save that. Here we go. So we have the message transition comes from the right side of the branch. Perfect. And what we want to do now is actually start logging the answers from the users. So for now, if I go down this branch and we start testing again, let's see what happens. This is cool. This is like one of the more complex conversations we've built.
Yeah, definitely. It's got a few more branches and all sorts.
Yes, I do want to work from home. Okay, here are the requirements. Do you have everything? I do not actually. I do not have a desk. I'm on the floor. Can you tell me what it is you don't have? I'll inform IT and let you know ASAP. So I have a desk, but it's a bit small and my back hurts when I stay at it for too long. Okay, so I've just, as the user, just sent this message, and the chatbot just says, okay, great, I've sent your message to IT. Please expect an answer from them within the next 3 days. So obviously, as you know, because you've been following this process from the start, my message is not actually sent to anyone. At the moment, it's just in the platform, correct? So
Yep.
what we want to do is two things. We want to prepare an email that's going to be sent to IT, which will contain my message as the user. And I want to create a variable in which I can log the user's answer here. So we can obviously do all of these things within the ubisend platform. Perfect. So what I can do is I'm going to go into integrations, variables, and as you can see, there are no variables here set just yet. So I can create a new one. So let's do requirements. Okay, so I'm just giving my variable a name, something that I can use later on, that I can remember easily. Obviously, requirements is not a really good variable name, but just for now, it's quite good. But just remember that if you're going to have a really thorough and complex chatbot, requirements could mean literally anything. So you might want to have IT_requirements or something like that. But for now, this will do. Okay, so I have a variable here saved and now available to use in my conversations. So if I go back to my conversation builder, I go into the work from home requirements conversation, and I go all the way down to this message, which is the one where we're actually asking the user to give us what it is they don't have. What I'm going to do is go into options, transition, and I'm going to say, when you transition from the current message to the next one, save whatever the user is saying under this variable. So as you can see, I've just picked up the requirement variable, and I can save this. Okay, so now when I go through this conversation, instead of just having the message logged somewhere in the platform that no one can actually use, now it's actually saving whatever the user is answering into a variable that we can reuse elsewhere. So in this instance, we're going to use it as an email, but really you could use this as anything. You could use this in an integration into your SuccessFactor ticketing system, or you could use it into your Teams ticketing system, or you could use it into as a variable into your e-commerce CRM, whatever it is that you want to use. This is really just a way to capture data from the user and reuse it somewhere else. So in this instance, we're going to use this message to send an email. So what we can do is go back into integrations, and as you can see, there's an emails section here that's already available to us. From this section, I can create an email that's going to be sent from the platform to whomever. So here I can do from email, so I can send this from the chatbot at, what was it? Well, I'm going to just do ubisend.io just because it makes sense, but really it would be your company name here, from the HR chatbot to it@ubisend.io. Subject, what would we say?
Probably something like employee needs working from home equipment. Probably not the best worded there, but
Work from home requirements, whatever, something like that.
Yep.
I'm not going to CC anyone. We could BCC someone if we wanted to. We could BCC our boss, or we could BCC HR. Actually, we're going to BCC HR because that makes sense. They might want to keep an eye on this, just in case, you know, the factory worker wants to work from home. That may not actually work, and IT might not realize it, and so maybe HR wants to keep an eye on this. And so what we're going to say is, hello, employee number, or sorry, maybe not a number. This employee would like to work from home. They are missing key items to facilitate this. Would you be able to pick this up with the employee and set up something? I don't know what. And then we can say, here is what they are missing. And then here we can use the variable that we just set up, which is requirements, which is right here. Okay. So again, to go through this email is going to be sent from your chatbot at ubisend.io or whatever your company is, from the HR chatbot. That's the name that's going to appear in your email. It's going to be sent to it@ubisend.io. So you can set up a specific email address recipient. It's going to have work from home requirement as the subject line, so you can actually properly see it in your inbox. It's not sort of lost in the ether. And then it's also going to be CCHR just in case. The actual email content is actually going to contain two things. One, pre-written content that I just wrote into the platform myself. This allows me to create some context around the email that the person is going to receive. But it's also going to contain dynamic content, which is this variable curly brackets requirements, which is going to be replaced every time this is sent. It's going to be replaced by the message that the employee has sent to the chatbot. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes sense to me.
Perfect. So I can save this and now I have a beautiful little email created here. And what I can do is I can go back to Conversation Builder. I'll go to my conversation work from home requirements. And obviously we have the entire conversation here. And I'm going to say on the very last step, we've collected all of the requirements here. I'm going to go into options, emails, add an email, work from home requirements, save, and we're all done.
Okay, so when you add that email there, that basically just tells the chatbot to send off that email. It's basically like a virtual press send button.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to send it automatically at the very end of the conversation. So whatever step you put this email integration in, this is when the email is actually going to be triggered. So if someone goes through the entire conversation here, it's actually going to go and send this email at the very last step. So at the very the very last step of this conversation, the email is going to be triggered, sent to IT with all of the requirements gathered previously.
Okay, perfect.
So if we go through the whole thing, can I work from home? Working from home is a perfectly viable option at our great company. To make sure that you're suitable for remote working, I need to take you through a short process. Ready? Yes. Okay, I can help you with your work from home request. Before I start, I show you want to work from home. So if you can see now the error that we might have made in the conversational UX perspective is that we've actually asked the user to confirm twice that they actually want to start this conversation. So this is something that you can actually see once you start testing your bot, which is why we have this demo section here as well. Because in this instance, we're asking, the user is asking a question, which the bot is confident enough with in its understanding of the question to respond this specific answer, and then provides the user a button to actually confirm that that is what they want to talk about. Yes. And then actually at the start of the conversation, we do the same thing again. And so in this instance, I would actually say that probably this first branching might not necessarily be needed. But this is the sort of stuff that you can actually see once you start really creating your conversations and seeing from where people get to this conversation. So in this instance, again, we might, we have created one way to get to this conversation, which is the FAQ, but you might have created other ways. So let's say you created the trigger that I mentioned at the start, which is if you land on this specific URL, which is work from home, mygreatcompany.com/work from home. You wouldn't, if you land on this page, you wouldn't have clicked this yes button. And so seeing this introduction message actually makes a lot of sense for these people, because they'll be reading this message and thinking, yes, actually, I do want to talk about that, or no, actually, I don't, and I just landed here for no reason. So you can really see the different scenarios of where will people land into this conversation, and see how you can either make it work for every single scenario, or how you can really tweak using the platform and all of the great features that we provide, how you can tweak each conversation to actually make the most of sense for every single unique route to the conversation. So that's where things get really, really interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely, because it almost reminds me as well. I think we did an onboarding video not too many weeks back, and you could almost kind of combine these two videos together. So as a follow-up from the onboarding video, you can have for office workers, oh, okay, are you going to need to work from home by any chance? And then you can kind of pull them through into this conversation. So
absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. So you will be jumping, or your employees or your users will be jumping between different conversations, and there are many different pathways to one specific conversation. So it's important to review that every now and then. And I saw a question earlier which I didn't necessarily pick up on. Sorry, I get really focused when I do this, but there was a question around. It's gone through the scroll now, so I can't find it. But the question was around: is this chatbot, or is this conversation one chatbot? So should I create more conversations around it, or is this the one purpose of this chatbot? So presumably this is someone who's attended before, because I think it was a woman. She spotted that we recommend having a one true goal for your bot. In this instance, I would say that, like I mentioned earlier, one conversation is a process. So you could actually have a lot more, quite a few other conversations within the same chatbot. But all this to say that, no, it wouldn't necessarily be just your work from home chatbot, unless that's a really, really massive process at your company, and you really want to make sure that it's all into this one chatbot, which is completely viable. But it wouldn't necessarily have to be that. But because you have the opportunity of having so many conversations that are related to HR or related to working from home, etc., you want to really make sure that you keep an eye on not expanding your chatbot to its limits by having completely random things, like, let's say, in the same chatbot you do remote working and company culture and submitting expenses and I don't know, all sorts of random things that may not really be related. Because if you start doing that, what you'll quickly end up doing is you'll have 40, more than 50, maybe 70 or 100 conversations created within the same bot, and quickly it becomes unmanageable, which is something we talk about all the time as well, because you just want to make sure that you can actually picture in your own head or visualize the different ways that people will get to different conversations without it completely blowing your mind and being completely unmanageable. So a big roundabout way of answering your question, but also a big roundabout way of saying, make sure that you test your bot, make sure that you understand which ways users actually navigate between conversation, to and from conversations, and make sure you keep a handle on the complexity that you bring into your bot with every single topic that it needs to be able to manage or to handle. Okay, we were testing this. So yes, I do want to work from home. Now, requirements to working from home. This one word that's just on the next line is really annoying me. I couldn't live with that. So can you confirm we have all of these items? No, I don't. That's the shame, but not the end of the world. What is it you don't have? I don't have a chair. Okay, so the bot is thinking, and now the message, as you can see, it took like a tenth of a second longer than before, just because it's actually creating and sending that message, logging that variable, sending that message to IT, and letting the user know that they can expect an answer in 3 days. And that's this whole process automated, unless we forgot something. Do you want to go through the other side? I guess we could all go through the other side of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a few minutes left today, so we might as well kind of go through. I think also, just kind of while you're doing the initial kind of couple of things here, it's also worth mentioning as well that obviously when we send the email off to IT, I can't remember if you mentioned it at the start of the video or not. Normally you'd kind of have a little integration at the start of the chatbot just to find out who the user is. So the chatbot might automatically know that without the user having to say, my name is David and I work in sales. The chatbot already knows that. So as it's going through this conversation, the chatbot already has the employee name, employee job title, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. We didn't really go through that much in depth on that side of things. Like you said, you would typically have an integration into your HR management suite or something like that would tell the platform or your chatbot that it is XYZ who works in sales, who's talking to the bot. If you don't have that, what you can always do is ask the user for their name and all that sort of stuff. Sorry. A bit of information gathering is all right. It's not much fun for the employees because you'd sort of expect that the bot should know this. But yeah, we didn't go through that side of things. Unfortunately, we only have a limited amount of time. So what I've done here is I've gone through the other side of the flow. So I said, yes, I want to work from home. can you confirm that you have all of this? Yep, I do. And then if you say I do, you get that little video, which you can play from here, which I'm not going to play. And so you're basically ready here as well. Is that anything you were hoping to see in this conversation, Jacob?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm just casting my mind back to the original question about this that came in before, and I think we've kind of covered all of the requirements there, because they were just interested in a way to kind of automate employees asking if they can work from home and gathering all the information and kind of ticking those boxes to make sure that they're prepared to do so and helping them if they are not, which I believe this chatbot kind of covers all of those processes.
Perfect. So as usual, to expand on this bot, what I would do is I would create more FAQs around the same topic. So people will ask roundabout ways of asking this question about being able to work from home. And you want to make sure that you have 3, 4, 5 maybe FAQs around this whole thing, driving the users to this this interaction. What I might want to do is create this integration into our HR system, just so that the bot knows who's talking. So that could be quite valuable. What else would I do? I'd probably,
I suppose if you were to say, look at this from a specific event, God, can't get my words out either now. But if you were to look at this from specific events that could happen at the company that kind of trigger working from home for certain employees, you can almost have like a broadcast or notification that goes out via your chatbot. If X is happening in the upcoming times, you're welcome to work from home. Just run through the chatbot to make sure you've got everything you need if you want to. So you can kind of, if there's a time where you might need certain employees to work from home, you can kind of also automate that side of it and trigger that off.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think the good use case that you mentioned earlier is in the onboarding, the employee onboarding conversation. You could, now that you have this conversation set up here, assuming you had an employee onboarding conversation set up somewhere else, you could add another step to that conversation just to say, would you like to work from home? Yes or no? And if they say yes, they are taken to this conversation here. So basically adding this new conversation allows, a whole flurry of optimizing elsewhere in your chatbot, which is quite cool as well.
Yes, it's nice to see how it can quickly start off. You might have one particular idea, like I just need the chatbot to do X, but as it grows and evolves and gets smarter with your company, as your company evolves, you can kind of tackle a few more things here and there.
Absolutely, cool. So perfect. So hopefully this was all really valuable and insightful for you to watch. As usual, I want to thank people who were watching this live with us and sending all sorts of questions. Jacob is keeping an eye on those and answering them privately. If we didn't manage to answer your question, feel free to obviously reach out. If you're watching this as a recording, make sure that you potentially subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do put out a lot of content very frequently now, so you don't want to miss anything. So make sure you join us there. And then if you want to join us live for the next episodes, it's going to be Tuesday, I can't do math, the 15th, I think. So next Tuesday at 1 o'clock UK time, and it's going to be our last one for the year. So we're going to try to do something a bit more fun around potentially some sort of Secret Santa thing. I don't know, what are we doing?
Yeah, I believe don't want to give away too many spoilers, but it is definitely kind of a Secret Santa somewhat related. I suppose that's quite a big spoiler in itself there. I'm rubbish at spoilers, but yes, that's.
Well, I spoiled it before you, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Maybe we need to work a little bit on our spoiler lessons, but that's all right.
Okay, great. So yeah, if you want to join that, just go to ubisend.com/job-in, and you can sign up for the next live session, and we'll be happy to see you there. Any last words, Jacob?
Nope, that's everything from me. So again, as I already said, thank you all for watching. A couple of the comments, questions I hadn't managed to reply to during the video, but I have got your emails, so I'll just ping you an email after the recording.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.